Hello, dogs and humans. This is Making Bacon Pancakes, a podcast dedicated to watching and analyzing every episode of Adventure Time. This is my first time watching the show, but I do know some things about it, including most of the major character names, many of the songs, and a few of the plot points. So this is not a spoiler-free podcast. You have been warned. This is also not really meant to be a reaction series. It is first and foremost an analysis podcast, with the obvious caveat that my analysis can't factor in anything I don't know yet, so I may come to conclusions that are incomplete or outright wrong, which in my opinion is part of the fun. Without further ado, I invite you to come along with me, because it's time for an adventure. Today's first episode is Episode 1, Slumber Party Panic. So on the most basic level, this episode is about the importance of keeping promises. Finn makes a promise, he struggles to keep it, he breaks it, then there are consequences he has to fix. Okay, that's all fine, but the sequence that interested me the most in this episode was the sequence where the Guardians of the Royal Promise essentially took Finn and Princess Bubblegum out of the narrative and into a separate story altogether. One of the things that stuck out to me about this sequence was the fundamental absurdity at the heart of it in an existentialist sense. One of the Guardians gives Finn an incredibly complex math problem, then on a whim changes it to one of the simplest math problems possible instead. The world is random, and its gods do as they please. There is no inherent meaning or reason in the problems we are confronted with. And yet the answer Finn gives to the math problem ends up giving Princess Bubblegum the answer she needs. Meaning is not inherent to the universe, but we can create it if we choose. And since Finn gave the correct answer, his and Princess Bubblegum's places in the story are restored. The absurdity at the heart of the universe is papered over by a return to a familiar narrative form. The Guardians of the Royal Promise also reset at the end of this sequence. One thing I know about Adventure Time is that it's very preoccupied with cycles and with the nature of time itself, and we can see the inklings of that here. Princess Bubblegum's decorpsinator serum also strikes me as a way to attempt a kind of reset of the world as it is, to bring it back to a time in the past when certain people were alive. And by the end of the episode, she succeeds in bringing all those people back to life. Time has seemingly moved forward, yet the state of the world has in many ways reset to a previous iteration. In this way, we can see how Adventure Time begins to challenge our understanding of how time itself works, and how we as people and as a society move through time. Today's second episode is Episode 2, Trouble in Lumpy Space. So the main conflict of this episode is that Finn is trying to prevent Jake from becoming lumpy. This raises the question, what does it mean to be lumpy? The obvious answer is that being lumpy means being Californian, but I think we can look a little deeper than that. I can see a couple different readings of the idea of lumpiness. One reading is that Finn's fear of Jake's lumpiness is about the general anxiety that your friends might become different, someone you don't recognize. We can see two different attitudes to that in the episode from Finn and Jake respectively. Finn perceives such an outcome as a kind of death, to the point where he assumes Jake would find actual, literal death preferable, whereas Jake just wants Finn to accept his lumpy self if it comes to that. I think this reading is not inaccurate, but it does strike me as a little incomplete. The second reading is that lumpiness is about growing up, and specifically about becoming a teenager/young adult. Notice what LSP says about lumpy space. You can only get around lumpy space in a car, which again points to lumpy space being California, but it also suggests a divide between lumpy space as the young adult, or at least adolescent world, versus the non-lumpy world as the rest of the world. The people of lumpy space also seem very teenager-like. They're permanently irony-poisoned and unimpressed, obsessed with coolness and calling other people posers. They obsess over who's dating who and whether they want to make out with each other, and their main social event is prom coming, a chimeric mishmash of every important teen event in every teen movie ever. I don't know how old Finn and Jake are supposed to be exactly. Finn strikes me as maybe 13, while Jake feels like a fully grown adult, honestly. But either way, whether they're too young or too old, they're clearly out of place in Lumpy Space. LSP and the rest of the denizens of Lumpy Space aren't just teenagers, they're perpetually teenagers, stuck in their self-centered worldviews and doomed to keep going to prom coming every week. But Finn and Jake, as quote-unquote smooth people, can grow into lumpiness and then, and this is the crucial bit, they can grow out of it. They don't have to be teenagers forever. Lumpiness is not a death sentence like Finn thought it might be, so long as you take the antidote. It's not so bad in the end to be lumpy for a bit, but you do have to grow up sometime and come back to Earth. That's all for today. If you'd like to reach out to me, whether you want to send me hate mail for my opinions about children's cartoons, or you want to appear on the podcast to discuss Adventure Time or another cartoon you like, you can email me at dominoboonchoipod@gmail.com. I also have a Patreon, link in the description below, where you can get videos 2 weeks early, as well as exclusive access to monthly animated movie discussions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.